Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.
The race for the Iowa 2nd and making sure the families of Down syndrome children have a place to turn to in the cities. It was 2 years ago when Dr. Christopher Peters decided to challenge Iowa's incumbent 2nd District Congressman Dave Loebsack. Peters, a Republican from Coralville, is in the race again, saying his background in medicine and the military makes him uniquely qualified to run for Congress. Now, the 2nd District includes the Iowa Quad Cities, Iowa City, Muscatine, Burlington, and Fort Madison. And joining us is Dr. Christopher Peters, Republican candidate for the Iowa 2nd. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be back. I appreciate it.
Why don't we talk about that in particular?
Sure.
Why do you think that you're qualified to be a congressman for the 2nd District? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I think there's several parts to that. I think that we've had the same representative now for 12 years. I think a lot of people in the district just don't feel like he's accomplished much and they're looking for something different. I offer that. The number one issue in knocking doors or polling has been healthcare costs far and away, and I think we need more physicians at the table to address that issue rather than more lawyers or college professors. So I think that's one big issue. As a veteran, I'm concerned about veterans issues as well, and so we've actually got a veterans coalition of people who are supporting our race, and that's something. In fact, we were in Knoxville yesterday, meeting with people, some veterans down there, including a really interesting gentleman who was a World War II Navy vet. He was fascinating to talk to. And then there's a whole number of other issues. I think it's just bringing new skill sets to the table. I think as a physician, you're used to problem solving. You see a patient, for example, with a difficult problem. You start from ground zero and try and analyze the problem, bring in consultants when you need to, form a team, solve the problem. I think that's the same approach I would take in Congress, and I think that it's in short supply right now in Congress.
Well, let's start with health care then in particular,
right,
because you say that you would like to see a simple free market solution. What do you mean by that?
So I think it's important to, number one, take a certain section of the population, people with chronic severe illnesses, particularly, for example, children with cystic fibrosis or cerebral palsy, something like that. Those are people that are never going to be well. Let's put them in a different group. We just need to find a way to take care of them. So I think it is important that a society take care of their most vulnerable.
The catastrophic cases were part of that as well, I believe, in your description of making sure that they are protected as well.
I would put that, so again, these people with chronic illnesses for a long time that we just need to take care of. Most Americans, however, over 90%, are healthy most of the time. Then occasionally we'll have a severe illness or injury, car accident, heart attack, cancer diagnosis, etc. That's perfect place for insurance to play a role. And we can make sure we kind of put the thumb screws to the insurance companies to make sure they meet their obligations there, they don't deny care, they don't drop people from their policies when those things happen. But at least 50% of healthcare costs in a given year are due to non-urgent, non-emergency kind of conditions. They're more routine, and these are things like you need to get your knee imaged or an arthroscopy or whatever those case may be. Using insurance for that actually has tended to drive up costs, and this has been going on since the early 1980s, regardless of whether that coverage is the government through Medicare or Medicaid or a private insurer. And so encouraging health savings accounts is what I would like to see for most Americans. Again, that small group, that doesn't apply. I don't expect Uncle Bill having a heart attack to get an app on his phone and be searching for the cheapest care for his acute coronary. But for most things, there is a room for a market to work. And it does work in some areas of healthcare, such as cosmetic surgery, vision correction. So it's something that can work. The real value is really twofold as I see it. Number one, I think it will drive down costs, and this is the trend we're already seeing in healthcare. We are seeing more free market solutions. My clinic offers cash-based prices. The imaging center down the street does the same. There's a surgical center in Oklahoma City where you can look up on their website and click on various things and find out how much things would cost. The other advantage is that when it puts more autonomy, more responsibility, authority back in the hands of patients. So once you surrender to another provider, whether it's the government, Medicare, Medicaid, or a private insurer like United or Wellmark, to pay for your care, you also surrendering some of your autonomy. You know, and anybody that's had care be denied or postponed understands what I'm talking about.
Now, one area that because you do believe that there should be some government involvement as far as healthcare costs are concerned. One thing that you were talking about is to pass legislation limiting patient charges. Self-pay patients can't be charged more than the lowest paying insurer is willing to cover. What do you want to see for that, and how do you think that would work as far as lowering costs?
That actually has two parts to it. Number one, especially when we're dealing with a federal provider, say Medicare, by law, no physician that I know of has been prosecuted for this, but if I charge less than the Medicare rate but still accept the Medicare reimbursement for a Medicare patient, I could be guilty of malpractice, or not malpractice, excuse me, of Medicare fraud.
Fraud, right.
And I ended up in Leavenworth doing federal time. So that provides some coverage for physicians that they can offer a price which is different than just having a standard fee schedule which applies to all insurance carriers. But it also helps provide some incentive to lower prices, and provides some incentive for physicians to look at their practices and hospitals and say, here's the this is the stuff we typically provide, what can we do this at with good quality but at a reasonable price. For example, cosmetic surgeons do procedures in hospitals and surgical centers all the time. They have to offer a cash-based price that includes whatever materials necessary, whatever staffing to include anesthesia. So they have a go to an anesthesia, go to the hospital, go to the surgical center, say, I need to offer a cash-based price. Mr. Anesthesiologist or Mrs. Anesthesiologist, what are you willing to do this service for, so that I can offer a cash-based prices? And a lot of a lot of what we do in medicine is amenable to that.
Because most patients think that there is no bargaining of any type.
It's difficult. So our middle boy broke his arm back this past winter, and when he needed surgery, I went to his orthopedic surgeon, fine guy, and I asked him, I said, what is this going to cost? And we opted for the surgical center as opposed to the hospital to save some cost. And I think he made a good faith effort to try and find out what it would cost us, but his best he could do is say it's going to cost at least $4,000 and probably not much more than $8,000. It's a pretty wide range, yeah. So I kind of joke, if you went into Walmart and were shopping big screen TVs and you said, I like this one, and they said, well, it's somewhere between $400 and $800, you probably wouldn't say, sounds good, put it in the car, I'll pay, bill me later. So we need some more transparency of costs, absolutely.
Talk about the VA as well as we move on, not only from medicine, but also the military. The Military Times is reporting that there's a greater backlog of cases in the VA than what we believe there is right now. They have an Inspector General's report saying some complicated cases take more than 200 days to resolve. You have a large VA clinic, of course, a hospital, I should say, inside your district of the 2nd District in Iowa City. What have you learned about the VA since you've gotten involved in politics for about two and a half years right now? And do you follow them closely, and are they doing what they should be doing?
Well, my experience with the VA goes a lot before my involvement in politics. So I had 9 years in the Army Medical Corps, where our hospitals, we actually took care of veterans. In fact, in Hawaii, where I did my first residency for 5 years, we were the primary veterans hospital facility of any type on the island. And then, of course, training in various veterans hospitals, to include my last long stint was at the University of Oklahoma, Oklahoma City VA, when I did my chest surgery training. So I've seen veterans care. I've actually seen kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly throughout that. Most have been pretty good. Iowa City's VA has a reputation generally of being pretty good. From at least that's what I hear generally. There's two main problems that I see. Number one, we've taken a model which works very well in a military base, where you have a hospital and basically everybody's kind of right there on that base.
Right.
And we now plant, a hospital here in Iowa City, one in Des Moines, but our veterans are dispersed throughout the state. So veterans are kind of used to the hurry up and wait mentality of being in the military, but I don't think that's fair to apply them. They're now civilians, and expecting them to travel for hours to get to a centralized facility doesn't really make a lot of sense for most healthcare needs, which again are more routine, getting their cataracts done or whatever, getting their medications refilled. So that's care that should, I think, be provided in the communities, but the Veterans Choice Program has not been working well. At least that's what I hear from the veterans I talk to in the district. I personally don't get my care through the veterans system. I didn't qualify for that, but that's what I hear. So the Veterans Choice system is not working well. Number two, I really think we ought to move away from this model where we have this centralized VA system, and again, more to the communities. I would like to see the veterans hospitals transition, and this is not my idea, I borrowed it from someone else with their permission, to transition to centers of excellence for conditions that are fairly unique to veterans. So traumatic brain injuries, PTSD, amputations, rehab from those kind of things. It could be opened up to the civilian sector as well, because people in the civilian sector get those types of injuries and illnesses also, but make them really centers of excellence for that care. But a lot of care that veterans need is more routine. Let them get that in their communities.
Biggest industry in this area, of course, is agriculture. The Farm Bill is once again being negotiated. Hopefully an agreement can be reached between the Senate and the House. It was defeated earlier this year without getting in the House, without getting a single Democratic vote. What did you think of that first Farm Bill that was proposed? And what do you want to see as a compromise Farm Bill?
I was actually pretty happy with overall the Farm Bill as written. I think the main reason that
the House version or the Senate?
House version, excuse me. Right. That's the one I paid attention to.
Sure.
The main reason I think that most Democrats opposed it were work requirements for beneficiaries on the welfare side of things.
Because as people know, the Farm Bill, about 75% of it has to do with food assistance, SNAP programs, things along that line.
Exactly. So, some compromise needs to be reached, and so I think they'll get that done. It'll be some kind of mix between the House and Senate versions, and certainly farmers are anxious that get passed, that get done, and I think it will.
Because the other big issue, of course, involves trade.
Right.
You've got the Trump administration that's getting very tough on trade, and it really is impacting a lot of farmers. New calls for tougher trade sanctions with China, which is one of the biggest soybean markets that American farmers have, and soybeans are king with corn in Iowa and Illinois. Are you worried about the rhetoric, at least, that's coming out of Washington, let alone the actions that are coming out of the administration?
It's the actions that concern me the most. I think I think it was announced another $200 billion in tariffs just yesterday, I believe. Talking to and it's not just farmers, it's also manufacturers in the district. Anybody that doesn't provide a service like I do, I don't send scalpels to China. Anybody that actually provides a good that's transported or relies on inputs that make a good here is being affected by trade. So this is something, now China, I agree with the president, China has been a bad actor, particularly regarding theft of intellectual property rights. But I personally see that tariffs are a very blunt tool, and it wouldn't be the tool I would have chosen. It's a bit like taking a sledgehammer into the operating room. It's not really what I would have used. But I'm not the president, so he can make those decisions. What I hear from talking to farmers and manufacturers is that they are very worried. They're generally willing to give this administration a pass for the time being, hoping that they're going to get a better deal on the other side. But they are worried. Farmers, for example, are worried about if that soybean market is lost to, say, Brazil. Even if we resolve these trade disputes, it's really difficult to recover that market down the line. So I think there are a lot of people that are very concerned. Generally, most are willing to give the administration, again, a pass and hope for a better deal down the line.
Another big industry, of course, that really affects the Quad City area is Arsenal Island and the continuation of all of the government contracts or even the private public sector combination partnerships that are going on the island. What do you hope to do as far as to assure people who work on Arsenal Island that their jobs are somewhat safe and that we're not going to have a BRAC that comes in once again that either looks to eliminate the work on Arsenal Island or at least cut it back significantly?
Well, I think that's something we really should defer to the military to be making those decisions where they think those resources are best allocated rather than making those decisions entirely just legislatively. My 9 years in the Army and just following things since that time, you certainly see enormous waste on a regular basis. The people in the military generally they're professionals. They kind of know what they need. They know where they need to get it from. So I would defer more to the Department of Defense deciding where things need to be. And my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there hasn't been any calls from the DOD to shut down Rock Island.
You are correct right now. Yeah, as far as we know, you're absolutely right. Another area having to do with the U.S. Senate approving, about $4.4 billion for a opioid campaign, a multi-year. It has to be still matched with the House bill. You're on the front line of medicine as well. You know the epidemic of opioids. What is the role of the federal government? What do you want to see? And some critics say that's just not enough when it comes to treatment.
Right. I think it's a multi-pronged solution there. Number one, I think most of that needs to be addressed at the local, county, and state level. I'm happy to see more funding from the federal government. I'm someone who's deeply skeptical generally of broad federal programs that can't take into the nuances of different communities and different states. Happy to see the federal government put some money that way. The opioid epidemic is a real issue. I'm not directly involved in that kind of care as a surgeon, but it's something that certainly needs to be addressed. A lot of what's driving it, I think, along with things like increased suicide, is just our societal alienation, right? When I growing up, I still know where all the neighbors lived on our block. My dad still lives where I grew up. I could point to each house and say that was the Harrises and that was, whoever. I don't think we do that very much anymore. We spend way too much time looking at these little devices and not enough time connecting. So I think there's things we can do there at a societal level that doesn't always involve a government solution. That's knowing your neighbors, volunteering in your community, mentoring young people, reaching out.
But the big problem for this particular situation seems to be the overprescription of what are normally legal drugs. And that kind of goes back to the medical community. I mean, is that something that the government should be involved in, or should the medical community be greater involved in cracking down on this?
And I think we are seeing that in the medical community. We are seeing, we get those updates as physicians where they're offering different suggestions about how physicians deal with opioids, how they prescribe, how they monitor that. There can certainly be greater oversight at the pharmacy level as well, making sure we're not getting people that are getting multiple prescriptions from multiple locations. But again, if there's that desire for a substance, illegal or legal, there's usually an avenue to acquire it. And so it partly is what we can do at the prescribing level, but it's partly what we can do as a societal level to decrease that want, that desire.
I hate using the word epidemic, but there is another plague that seems to be hitting us, and that's school violence.
Oh, I thought you were going to say social media.
Well, I could go there too as well. What do you want to see as far as a federal involvement to try to cut down on some of these crimes that are occurring inside of our schools? I mean, you almost feel that when it comes to parenting, they're not even surprised it happens anymore. It's not if, it's when it's going to affect their family, and that is a terrible life to lead in America. Right.
So part of this goes back to what I just mentioned. We've got this societal alienation, and so knowing your neighbors, knowing your kids, identifying where problems are. Part of that is just that. I think we can as a people come together to help fix that just in our own communities. Number two, I think there's a number of things we can do to look at decreasing, even if there is somebody that is intent on evil in our schools, and I've still got one child in high school and two that are college age, I'm concerned about it as well. There's courses on active shooting drills to basically help teach staff at a school how to better prepare, how to barricade, how to actively address it. The American College of Surgeons has a program called Stop the Bleeding, which addresses trying to actually reduce mortality and morbidity from injuries and accidents when they occur. There's there's not one silver bullet, pardon the really bad pun, but there's a lot of things we can do, I think, to address that.
Well, and then I wonder also, because some people say we need to arm teachers. We have to have more guns inside the school to protect the kids. Is that something that you would favor?
If there's a teacher that is well-trained and you've got to figure out how you define that, what kind of competence they have, I would have no problem with that personally. What I don't want to see is a poorly trained teacher or one with basically none at all having another firearm in the school.
So you brought up social media, so I might as well bring it up as well. So social media right now, and the giant social media companies, Congress brought them before to testify. Do you want to see more regulation? Do you want to see the federal government greater involved in how Facebook and Twitter and these large mega companies operate? I mean, do you think that infringes on the First Amendment, or do you think there has to be some way that the government at least verifies and makes sure that these companies are operating appropriately?
At this point, I don't see a need for more government regulation. From what I've, in fact, I just read an article on that this morning as well. Google refused to show up for those hearings, is my understanding too. But I think government can have a role to say, hey, you better fix this thing, or we make step in. And I believe it was the Sandberg, I think is the woman's name, second in command at Facebook, said, this is on us. And she was talking really more regarding fake stories that were circulated, and this is on us, we got to fix this, and I think that's the right approach. Sometimes just shaming people or a company is enough to get them to do the right thing. I think there's another concern as well, which is there's a couple other concerns as well regarding social media. One has to do with just identity and where's our limits of secrecy and our privacy, where that line should be drawn. It's a little hard to know when we're voluntarily using these programs whether we have a right to privacy in that situation. But I think that's something that's going to continue to come up. And then lastly, I think just the divisiveness of social media. That my approach on social media is to, on Facebook or whatever, is to try and treat whoever I'm interacting with as if I was in their living room, but not everybody follows that same advice.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so I think that's something. It's a new medium, still relatively new, and we're still trying to figure out how to adapt to it. And it to adapt to us.
Dr. Christopher Peters, candidate for the 2nd District in Iowa, Republican candidate. Thanks so much for joining us.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
In the coming weeks, you'll be able to see all of our candidate interviews on our website, WQPT.org, so look for that. In a moment, a playhouse that's so much more for children in the cities. But first, here's Laura Adams, Out and About.
This is Out and About for September 24th to 30th. Hi, I'm Laura Adams. It's time for the 3rd annual Oktoberfest Lederhosen 5K and Kids Fun Run, September 29th at Schwiebert Park. Meet Joe Lample at the Master Gardeners Focus on Fall Conference at Scott Community College, September 29th. Or visit the 3rd annual Teepee Gathering at Linowick Forest Preserve in Hampton, September 28th through 30th. Sailors test their skills against the Mississippi at a regatta hosted by the Lake Davenport Sailing Club, September 29th and 30th. And it's time for Bishop Hild's Jordsbruksdagerna, September 29th and 30th, with entertainment, demonstrations, and food. Credit Island Park is the location for the Quad Cities Renaissance Fair, September 29th and 30th, or check out the Harvest Moon Song and Dance Fest at Walnut Grove Pioneer Village in Long Grove, September 30th. Treat yourself to Ladies' Night at Jumer's Casino with Diamonds and Divas, September 27th, and Circa 21 opens the outrageously hilarious Race Against the Clock in the comedy Mama Won't Fly. Next door at the Speakeasy, the finals of the stand-up comedy competition take place September 29th. Experience one of the most phenomenal harmonica players in history, John Popper, at RME the 24th. The Candy Makers perform at the Spotlight Theater September 29th. Elegies for Angels, Punks, and Raging Queens is presented at the Bruner Theater Center in Rock Island September 27th through 30th, rated R. And for more information, visit WQPT.org.
Thank you, Laura. October is Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and the folks at Gigi's Playhouse want you to lace up your shoes for a good cause. But perhaps more important, the group wants you to know there's a place for Down syndrome children and their parents to go to for support. And joining us is Pam Lynch, the site coordinator for Gigi's Playhouse in Moline. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just talk about the walk first of all, because this is your biggest fundraiser. It's more than a walk, it's a race, and it's a place for the kids to have a good time as well. How critically important is this?
Very.
Yeah, it is.
We are 100% privately funded, so fundraisers like this are what help us offer all of our programming, keep the lights on, the doors open.
Yeah, and it's coming up October 6th at the Bettendorf Memorial Park. You're always at Memorial Park, so that's really nice. A beautiful walk and a good cause as well. Tell me about Down syndrome in particular. There's so much more acceptance now, it seems, and a better understanding of what exactly these families face.
Well, that's what we hope. We strive for that. Individuals with Down syndrome have a 3rd copy of the 21st chromosome. I know that we talked, or you mentioned that in your email to me. And we strive for the acceptance piece. You know, you said that it's Awareness Month, but we call it Acceptance Month. We want these individuals to be accepted for the people that they are, because they are individuals before they are Down syndrome.
Well, and so often families just don't know where to turn. And if you have a child that has Down syndrome, there's no reason for you just to be at home and try to deal with it as a family, which is great. But also you want to let people know that there are resources available.
Correct. We want them to come to Gigi's. We want them to come and meet other families and get involved with programming. All of our programming is free for families, so there's no cost. There's no barrier of not being able to afford it. We don't charge insurance. They don't have to be on a waiver. It's 100% free for those families. And they can meet other families who are walking in those same shoes and going over those same hurdles.
Yeah, and for some families, there's more than one child. I mean, the burden for the family can be, depending upon the amount of a disability that the child might have, I mean, the parent can be very stressed out.
Yeah, They can be. Again, we focus more on the abilities than the disabilities.
Absolutely.
We want to focus on what the person can do and not what they can't do. And the Playhouse is for the entire family. It's for siblings, it's for parents, it's for grandparents. It's just a great way for them to come together and again, meet other families that are going through the same thing. And all of our programming is educational and therapeutic based. So we're working on large motor skills, small motor skills, speech and language skills, things like that.
October 6th is just around the corner.
It
How do you
is.
register? I mean, tell me a little bit about well, I was going to say the type of person you're looking for. I mean, the 5K runner is somebody hopefully has got a little bit of exercise behind
Yes,
them.
it is competitive.
But it's available to anybody, and how do you register?
Yep, they can register on our website, or they can come to the Playhouse and do it in person. The day of the event, there's also on-site registration.
And like we said, Bettendorf Memorial Park, it's a beautiful place to run or walk, and you also have other activities that are going on.
Yes, there's a bounce house and some kids' tattoos and some entertainment. The Sparkles cheerleading will be there to entertain. Yep, from Pleasant Valley will be there to entertain. It's just a great day to come out and show your acceptance and your support for local individuals with Down syndrome.
And like you said, I mean, it's an acceptance month, and it's too bad that you have to pick a month. You want it year round. What kind of outreach do you do? I mean, do you try to make sure that the rest of the community better understands Down syndrome and Down syndrome families?
We do. We try. You know, we go into school districts when we're asked and invited and talk to classes and talk to teachers, and we go out to the community organizations and do presentations to, you know, the Rotaries and the Kiwanis groups and things like that. Just spreading the awareness as much as we can. Again, spreading the acceptance.
Yeah, so what you know is not something that you fear, or worse yet, something that you mock.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yep.
I so much appreciate it. Pam Lynch from Gigi's Playhouse, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
October 6th, Veterans Memorial Park in Bettendorf. And just a reminder, the Superhero 5K, the 1 mile walk, and the Dash for Down Syndrome is once again coming up Saturday, October 6th, Bettendorf's Veterans Park, Veterans Memorial Park, and you can get more at the Gigi's Playhouse website. WQPT is also doing its part to support the military men and women in the cities who are serving our nation. We call it Embracing the Military. And Sesame Street Live is coming to the Tax Layer Center October 4th. And the Leisure Travel Office on Arsenal Island is offering discounted tickets. You can find out more by stopping at their office next to the PX Rock Island in Building 333. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.